So how did you feel the arrival of Adam Copeland was handled with the video, the reaction it got? I think, this certainly was not an out of left field arrival, but certainly it got an enormous response from the crowd in Seattle, and this was the dominant story coming out of the show.
I thought it was really well done, really well handled. I think the added touch of having the video just gave it an extra bit of polish that I wasn't necessarily expecting. And I don't even know if that was just an AEW decision or if it was just a decision on his own that he decided to phone up Darby's buddies to film something.
Well, it was like John Carlo was doing was there on top of it. Like, I think this was like a AEW project itself, but it seemed like those guys like had the reins to probably like direct the creative of this video.
It looked great, but I really do think like the cherry on top of the entire presentation is having Metalingus. Great. I'm sorry I had to say the name. Yeah, it's a pretty bad name, but it's a classic song. It's completely attached to the man's identity, and if you're not going to have his name, having his music, I think, is almost even. I'm not going to say just more.
I don't think the loss of Edge is any loss at all. Like I always felt it was a name that he outgrew by the time like he was doing the comedic stuff with Christian, but it was just a name that stuck, and it was the branding of the character. I don't think there was any loss of losing this. And again, like I think the rated R superstar, I think for merchandise material, that is to me even more valuable. And at this stage of his career, like I think this guy, if this was a divorce, I mean, he got the sweetheart end of the deal.
He got it pretty good for a guy that spent pretty much his entire career within the WWE to be able to escape with as much as he has. And listen, losing the name is a big one. Okay. Like if you're advertising on, to a non AEW fan, well, who's Adam Copeland? Right? Like a lot of fans are simply going to know Edge versus blank a whole lot more. But if you can't have that, like having the music is the next best thing. You're generating plenty of buzz. And in several months' time, you would hope that he would have enough people knowing who Adam Copeland is, the way Jon Moxley has, or the way, I guess, Bryan Danielson has.
Moxley's a great example. I mean, he was one that like that was of absolutely like Dean Ambrose was an active negative for him. I wouldn't call Edge a negative, the name itself, but for him, that was a great transition out of it. But
did you see some of the trademarks that he reportedly filed?
Yeah. So we have got
Cope, the legend LEDGEND.
What about the he could have gotten a rated R superstar
Reg. Okay.
Ledge. How about Adam Copeland? I think Adam Copeland sounds a lot better than these names.
Yeah. Kind of unfortunate that there are like 5 Adams in the company right now, and not to mention an Adam Cole already.
But you know what? It's like they have multiple Lees, they have multiple Starks. Like, do we really get that confused over these things? Or is that just like a thing that has been taught to you that's like, I can't possibly think of 2 people with the same name and not get them confused?
You're very right. You are very right. But can you see him
Cope? No, Cope. I don't want to see. It's like, this is a guy that he had said himself, like if he realized it way back when, like the name Edge, one of the things he didn't like about it was it wasn't a chantable name. Like it didn't have the multiple syllables, and it's like Cope.
I guess so, but
maybe he just scooped up a bunch of stuff. Anything that came to mind, he just grabbed. But yeah. I think he's got the key stuff, and I would just be moving forward with this. We wanted to spend a little bit of time at the beginning of the show to go over this month at the Post Wrestling Cafe. We are going to have 2 editions of Rewind Away this month, starting this Thursday with a review of Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura, and Carl Weathers. Give me the most basic CGI a film could experiment with in the late 80s. This was it. Okay. But if you're not digging film reviews, well, later this month, it's the big one. WrestleMania X7 will be reviewed by myself and Wei Ting. That will be coming out October the 19th. So 2 editions of Rewind Away. Loki Season 2. They gave me a new season. I'm going to be going back to Disney Plus. This will be the return of Loki as Rich Fan and WH Park will be returning every Sunday night. New Japan, we will have Karen Peterson and Bruce Lord coming together. And then your Cafe membership at all levels gets you weekly Rewind to SmackDowns with the ability to call in at the end of the show, Collision Course with Kate from Montreal and John Cena, and of course, Ask Away, our mailbag show each and every month. It is $6 that gets you in the door and access to all of these shows this month, 30 days access. And of course, you can go and grab all of the archives that date back, Wade tells us, over 1,000 shows to just sit down and listen to one by one. In terms of the press conference he did afterwards with Tony Khan, this guy was just over the moon happy to be in AEW. He's going to be on Dynamite and Collision this week in non-wrestling capacities, but will be appearing. And then he will do his first match on Title Tuesday, October 10th against Luchasaurus. So that is a loaded up show for AEW. They do not want to have a loss on an unfamiliar night. And this will make tomorrow night's NXT very interesting to see how much do they counter this show next Tuesday? Like, do you throw the gauntlet or do you just do a regular show? I mean, you're going up against a lot here, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. They could throw FTR and the Young Bucks on that Tuesday, like Title Tuesday. We've got one title match so far. Obviously, you would assume more are going to be added this week.
I see them stacking it, certainly. And if I'm NXT, what's the reaction? I mean, tradition or at least like conventional thinking would have you think that they would also stack, their show. But what is it better to say that, like, okay, in the event that they lose, is it better to say that, hey, we just put a regular show, so like we didn't even try, so good for you if you won, or do you want to be able to say we tried really hard and we still lost?
What is the biggest play you could see them making of like a main roster person? Like, is there a certain limit you would see, or
so if Becky's healthy, then it would be a Becky match.
Becky's an automatic, I would think. Like, provide, like, they're actively advertising her for next Monday, so I think they're of the belief she'll be cleared to go. It's not as though she has a concussion or something. It's a laceration that
bad laceration.
It's a pretty bad one, but I mean, it's one that you can maybe forecast that within a week she should be okay to go.
If you want to go bigger, like, I mean, Cody has yet to make the trip over to NXT, and if you're looking to counter an AEW audience, having Cody be the person would be pretty
Cody
huge.
Is out there. I mean, like, it maybe it's just
Jade is another one that they could possibly use up by then. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you have this big night now where you're going to have both shows load up.
Just like old times.
There you go.
Peaceful online social interactions.
That's it. A lot of rational discourse today about this decision for a free agent to go to a competing company. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Adam Copeland's comments that you did get to see? I mean, he was saying all the right things that you would want to hear. Very hard not to make the direct comparisons to CM Punk of how he came in and was saying a lot of the same things, even aligned with Sting and Darby Allin after that first pay-per-view match that they had as well. I think people are going to be looking at this quite differently, just given the history of Adam Copeland. And it is so clear of so many people on the roster that have spoken publicly since this appearance that just grew up as Edge, the be-all, end-all for so many of these wrestlers that looked at him as this iconic figure.
Yeah. I mean, the comparison points pretty much end there, right? Like they end at, hey, like he's friends with Sting and Darby, right? Like, because
you had like the same mission statement of like, listen, my door's always open. I'm here to teach. I'm here to work with these young talents. I'm blown away by the roster. Like, this was, it was, and you're looking for the same kind of impact, at least in the short term, with Adam Copeland. Like, I think it's a very fair comparison to look at, what Punk did and Adam Copeland here, like a career WWE guy that is coming over. And it is a short-term spike that you would be hoping to gain.
Certainly. In terms of like, what they can do for the company. I mean, I kind of have this lowered expectations for Adam Copeland compared to CM Punk, just because I think Punk means that much more to an AEW crowd. But I also was more so speaking about maybe what we currently know about, how the CM Punk run ended, because I don't think for a second you're going to run into any of those same backstage issues with Adam Copeland.
Probably a good prediction.
Yeah. Like by all accounts, just seems like, a really good like people person. Somebody who, at this stage of his career, I think he's a perfect fit for AEW because even in the WWE, he seemed to have a great deal of autonomy with his own creative direction anyway. Certainly his own promos, he's more than capable of doing without much guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm very excited to see like what he can do in this sort of like more of an open sandbox that AEW provides.
Yeah, and he was very diplomatic towards WWE, but at the same time, I mean, he made it clear. He mentioned multiple times how free he felt here. Like that was a word he used multiple times, and the fact that it was like he stressed, I'm a full-time guy. I'm not going to just be showing up every 3 months. And you definitely got the sense like he wanted to be doing more. Like when I looked today on his profile, it was like he did 28 matches in this whole comeback run in WWE. And it did become a little like formulaic of, okay, now it's time for the injury angle for him to disappear. And it would just be sporadic, come back, do your program. And, was not somebody that was so used so sparingly that it was a giant deal when he showed up either. It was sort of like he was in limbo of guy that's working consistently versus, the, 1 or 2 matches a year. He was sort of in that middle where it wasn't just the novelty of Edge showing up as well. But it's, as we have seen, when a performer jumps, it's a fresh coat of paint. And I think with him, it is that much more when you have all these different people to interact with and who benefits a lot from this, like who he will be paired with and what you can get out of somebody that, let's be honest, he's turning 50 this month.
Doesn't look it, man. And certainly in ring, I would say he's still very much, I think, like the Edge of old, like we've only recently seen, with his in-ring performances. I think as a promo, he's the best he's ever been, so as a total package, you can argue he is doing the best work of his career up until his today. So I think there's a full-time schedule is always risky, especially at that age, and especially with the style that AEW demands of its wrestlers. He was going pretty hard in WWE as well, but
it's a high level. He can't just come in and like, I mean, listen, the guy's a hard worker, but it's like if you're involved in like derby matches, like just look at what Sting has put himself up towards. Like it's a high level on this. Imagine you being an Adam Copeland that just took in that pay-per-view last night. Like the bar is very, very high.
Certainly. But, he's a guy who can do a lot without necessarily taking the type of risk that a Darby Allin has to. A Darby at this point really doesn't need to take the level of risk he does as well, but he chooses to. But with that said, the people who benefit the most, obviously Christian, okay? Anybody who's had a prior history with Edge, I think the Hardys suddenly have, an anticipated rematch for anybody who might want to see that. But I think the biggest beneficiaries might be FTR, who, even though they lost CM Punk, they have a new trios partner in Adam Copeland. Rated FTR, I believe, is what they've already teased the name to be. So you've even got that already.